Hello, listeners. Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network, and I want to take just a moment to tell you about another show on our podcast network designed specifically for higher ed marketing leaders. Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO, hosted by Jamie Hunt, Chief Marketing Officer at Old Dominion University, has become an industry favorite. The show is sort of like a conference in a podcast, offering a blend of professional wisdom, innovative ideas, and personal anecdotes. Whether you're a higher ed marketer, a faculty member curious about the behind the scenes of university branding, or just someone with an interest in the intersection of education and marketing, the podcast is your gateway to the lesser known narratives of higher education. You can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or just search Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Mastering the Next, a cutting-edge podcast that explores the future of graduate, online, and non-traditional education through the lens of AI and technology. I'm your host, Dr. Ray Lutsky, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at Element 451. Join me every 2 weeks for discussions with some of the thought leaders shaping the future of graduate enrollment management through technology. Mastering the Next is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform that helps institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. In this episode, we'll delve into the profound implications of artificial intelligence on society with a special focus on the realm of higher education. I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Sasha Sidorkin, Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer at California State University, Sacramento. He's also founding director of the National Institute on AI in Society. He'll help us hopefully demystify the transformative potential of AI, examining both the opportunities and challenges it presents to learners, educators, and institutions alike. Sasha, a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So I have to start with what's next for Sacramento State in the area of artificial intelligence. How are you planning to expand or deepen your engagement with AI in the near future?
So the technology in its use is maturing, so it brings a different set of challenges and opportunities. It is in a mass consumption area for maybe, I don't know, year and a half. So now we learn more about the technology that shows that let us actually choose a better strategy. I think we're getting a sense what it's going to be helpful in and what the limitations are. The next step is really to develop a strategic approach to AI implementation and also to understand how we can help others outside of university to cope with the same challenge.
And of course, that's so needed. So could you explain the genesis and the mission of the National Institute on AI and Society? What inspired its formation? What are your primary goals?
So I'm a philosopher of education, actually, by training and by my scholarship, but I also have been interested in educational technology for a long time, including following the AI developments for a few years now. So when ChatGPT came out for this kind of large market consumption in December of 22, I was one of the first maybe to start playing with it. And, I've been in this field for a long time. I immediately saw the implications for education that it has. And then I started to write a book while exploring the technology on the use of AI-powered chatbots in education specifically. And before that, I was a dean of the College of Education for 7 years. And before that, I was dean in other places. So I know education well, both K-12 and higher ed. So my view is not from the point of view of technology, but from the point of view of use, specifically in education, but also in other applications in society. The president, we have a new president at Sacramento State, Dr. Luke Wood. When he heard of my interest in my book, he actually came up with the idea of creating this institute, and he offered me the position, which I gladly have taken because being dean, I loved it, but there's limits to how many years you can be in this position. And this opportunity really helps me to use different part of my brain, less administrative, more creative. So that's why I thought it would be a great change. And like I said, I jumped at it. When we discussed with the president what we're going to do, it kind of falls into two parts. One is internally facing, so I'm helping this campus and to move to the age of AI, and that we can talk about it later. There's like several directions of doing that, and the other one is externally facing. So we want to help uh, other sectors of education, but also other parts of society to kind of move on. And we're thinking of this institute as being a public think tank. So the process is complex. It actually is not uh, by any way natural. So people shape how technology is being adopted, and we want to play a role in it to make sure that it actually benefits most of the society and not a select few. So, and we really worried about it doing more good than harm. And so that's the other part of our mission.
And that leads me to a question. That's, I mean, it's amazing that that's how things have come about. And clearly, you're an expert in artificial intelligence. So, can you share some of the ways Sacramento State is going about integrating AI into curricula or research initiatives? Are there specific disciplines or areas where the impact of artificial intelligence is being felt the most?
Yes, it's sort of this activity kind of breaks down to four different parts. One of them is the use of AI, generative AI specifically in classroom. So this is actually the most difficult and most challenging and most kind of loaded with other issues part. And then there is university is also a large organization. So there is, like any other organizations, we have efficiency problems, the economic consideration for saving on certain things, doing things better, reducing barriers. So, and that includes things like student experience. If you think about it that as our students being our customers, so that's sort of the whole customer relation thing. And then, of course, there is also the use of AI in business processes, different kinds of things that we do. And then there is also, and that it breaks down into straight out of the bot applications that you can just go and do. And then there is also the whole area of small tools that we sometimes need to build. And then there's the third level of sort of the enterprise level implementation of AI, where AI would talk to our internal data. So, and the different people responsible for all of these activities, and I kind of try to get my hand in every one of them. A lot of my time is spread by like training, showing people how to use AI, and also going around and being like an internal consultant and saying, well, you can do this, or you can do that.
So that's incredible, and it's really breadth of things you're dealing with as the chief AI officer at Sacramento State. So, given that and working with all these constituencies, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges or opportunities that are coming about implementing AI technologies within the campus?
Well, like I said, so the whole thing has to do with sort of our organizational efficiency. It's complex, but it's really not problematic. We know what to do. I mean, some of it is training, some of it is building the tools, finding resources, and all of that. So the challenging thing, of course, to the classroom, and I think people who deal with education, all of them understand the problem. Some of them understand it instinctively, and others are more aware of what the problem is, that it doesn't fit into our learning science as we have it now. So if you look at sort of learning theory, how people learn, you will know that the progression is gradual. So we learn sort of like if you take writing, a typical skill. So you start with early literacy. You learn phonics, phonemic awareness. You learn how to spell, how to build small sentences, and then 5 paragraph essays, and then you learn how to write different kinds of things, and then you learn eventually advanced skills like creative and critical thinking, the sense of style. So what the AI does, it misplaces the mid-range skills. And of course, as one of the great theorists of educational technology, McLuhan, said, every augmentation is an amputation, and that people forget that. It means that any new tool will actually displace the skills. Anything that you invent to do, you lose the skills that you used to have to do the same thing without the tool. And while it is a normal process in education, we have a particularly challenging problem because if you misplace this mid-range, for example, writing skills, we're not sure if how we can get to this higher level skills if people don't know how to write. It's not just about writing. So if you look at, say, software engineering, it's the same issue. People used to learn the profession by learning to code, to sort of do this manual grunt work, and then eventually you become software engineer. But that kind of procedural knowledge, grunt work, was the foundational skill for learning more advanced skills. So if you yank it, we don't know what's going to happen. We have a lot of guesses, a lot of hypotheses, theories, but empirically we don't know. So that's sort of the philosophical problem with that. But on practical level, if you take a regular higher education faculty, so far AI has been a lot more hassle than it is a benefit for them because it attacks your curriculum, right? So if you build certain way of like teaching your course and it involves certain sequence of tasks for students, suddenly you realize that some of them, or in some cases all of them, need to be revised because students will just go and to chat GPT or Claude and get a ready answer. So, okay, so you need to revise it. How do you revise it? We really have kind of, again, intuitions about it, but there is no real solid knowledge from like learning science point of view. What is it that is going to replace those assignments that are not feasible anymore? So I think a lot of people criticize higher education faculty for panicking about AI, for trying to police and forbid students to use this technology, and it may look like we don't know what we're doing. That's really not the case. Faculty instinctively feel that that technology destroys what they develop, and of course, they many of them try to put a stop to it, which is unfortunately is understandable but not very good reaction because the proper reaction would be to revise your curriculum so that it becomes AI saturated but also cheating proof. So, I have this personal theory that there are alternative vehicles to get the more advanced skills without necessarily going through the same mid-range skills that it's replacing. But it's my theory, it's my word against their experience. So that's why it's also a political issue because faculty are very powerful on campus. They in many areas they have a priority and upper hand over administration. Issues of curriculum and pedagogy are one of those. We have a number, maybe a couple dozen faculty on campus who are actually actively using AI, but we have over 1,000 people teaching here, and that numbers of and there's always that 20 people who are ready to do anything, and their numbers are not growing. So we are not. So I guess the challenge for me is to figure out how to make that possible and make it interesting for faculty to actually redo their curriculum to accommodate for AI.
And it's a global problem. I would suspect that the situation you're describing is happening all over the country and in multiple countries with faculty of various disciplines. And it brings me to questions about the work you're doing with the National Institute on AI in society and what the plan might be to influence public perception or even policymaking around AI and where that might go with the National Institute.
Yeah, there are several things we're trying to do. Well, first of all, about the policy, we actually created like a sample policy that campuses might adopt. It's on our website, and also sample language for syllabus that people might use. And we designed several resources, like, for example, if you were to revise your assignment, what are the cheating proof or cheating resistant assignment would look like. And also, if you are using AI in instruction, how you can use it. Sort of, I think their first line of influence is just to show that it's possible. I think that's, for example, a rubric assessing writing that was done with AI. So if you look at the rubric, it assesses student content that they created with AI on originality, creative thinking, critical thinking, authenticity of their voice, and ability to discern what is a good content and what is an average content. It doesn't have anything about mechanics of writing. It's not. There's nothing about spelling, grammar, syntax, structure, and all of this because machine can do it for you. But so it's kind of actually raising expectations and moving it toward higher level thinking skills and letting some students to skip over some of the mid-range skills and still be successful. But we also set up a new kind of a journal or a preprint actually that will publish the cases. I think what educators, higher education, but all educators like is to see some examples. They can, they're very skeptical about theoretical kind of talk. They want to show me how it works, and then they can transfer that experience into their subject. And so I hope that once we see more of a view how people do it in practice, we'll be able to convince a lot more people that it's doable, that you can actually teach with AI without damaging student growth and actually promoting the cognitive growth, promoting their human development. You need to show that AI doesn't stop the growth, that there's actually, that they learn something.
And it's probably a lot of work to think about how to bridge that gap between the technology advancement and what's going to happen in classroom education. And I was wondering if you could highlight any specific projects or collaborations that the National Institute on AI in Society is currently engaged in or moving towards, and how these projects might aim to address some of those challenges. You mentioned a little bit, but I'd love to hear more.
I think people underestimate how important is AI, a generative AI for reading things, not for writing things, but for reading things and finding things and matching them. And we have actually several projects like that. Some of them are advising for students. Students don't understand academic policies because they're too long and written in the jargon that's hard to read. So, I mean, if you know anybody in college, you know that the college catalog is incomprehensible for an average 20-year-old. It's been a story for a long time. So we hire hundreds of advisors to explain what the document says, translate it into more accessible language. But it's not about language. It's about your case is always more narrow than the entire possibility of cases that the policy covers. So there is an essential problem there. You need this much, but you're given that much, and you have to fish out. So that's one of the key applications of AI is the ability to translate specific and then into generic and then give you back the answer that you want. So this technology of it's custom bots basically. That is going to be revolutionary from a point of view of efficiency and hopefully for student experiences as well.
And that makes a lot of sense given the fact that there is difficulty, especially at a large institution, to navigate all of that information and I would argue that, particularly for graduate education, that is a challenge. And also, graduate education, frankly, is working to develop uh, the ways folks work with AI in society. So, can you think about for us some of the initiatives that Sacramento State is undertaking to prepare graduate students or any students for a future where AI is going to play a central role in organizing information, not just in their professional lives, but probably their personal lives too?
Well, yeah, there is actually, if you look at the student body, the most acute interest is actually among graduate students, especially doctoral programs, because those people are immediately entering careers, so they're not looking for more school, and they are wondering what is it going to be like for them. So, I mean, eventually we'll probably have to revise learning outcomes. We are not there yet, but that's what it is. But as one example of application of graduate education, I have a colleague in College of Education who teaches statistics for doctoral students. We have an EDD program. So she made that conscious choice. I'm not going to teach them the procedural part of statistics. I only will teach them the conceptual part of statistics. And they will be using AI to actually do the calculation and interpret data. I think it's a very bold step. I mean, I don't think undergraduate statistics instructors are there yet because they still believe in that. But the doctoral program is so close to the career, you have to be really realistically looking at what it is people are going to be doing. And if you look realistically, nobody will do statistics by hand anymore. Within a few years, I mean, we used to teach students how to run SPSS or R or other statistical software. They're not going to be doing it anymore. So if you have a data set of any kind, quantitative or qualitative, you can you can use AI to interpret it. You still need a very advanced skills understanding what those concepts are. Like I mean, if you don't know anything about qualitative research, there is no way you can interrogate the data. So, but the hope is that we'll spend more time on this really advanced, sophisticated skills and less time on procedural, mechanical skills that will show you how to do certain calculation or know what the formula exactly is for effect size or correlation. But you need to understand what effect size is. What formula goes into it is really not that essential.
That's fascinating that the idea that research methods will be important to understand, but actually conducting the analyses might be something that is handled by AI. And it brings me to my last question, which is to ask you to look towards the future, use your academic crystal ball, and how do you envision the relationship between AI and society, where these doctoral students, where these students are graduating into the future? How do you envision that relationship? What is it going to look like? What role do you see for institutions like Sacramento State and the National Institute on AI and Society in shaping that future? What's it going to look like?
So if we do nothing in education, which is a choice, you can just wait for technology natural to infiltrate us. Kind of people start using it. It's actually not a bad choice, except it has implications for equality because we've been doing technological enhancements in education for a long time, so we know what's going to happen. If you don't actively teach it, then students from more affluent middle class and upper middle class backgrounds will figure it out and use it to their advantage. And the students from disadvantaged groups, marginalized groups, will not. And then it creates a new divide. We already have a lot of divides. So if we have an AI divide on top of everything else, it's not going to help us. That's why I'm kind of getting antsy. We should really move faster because I mean, I'm a patient guy. I could wait, but I don't think it's the case where we can wait. There is also, and that's the choice. I mean, if you teach everyone how to use it, then it actually may have equity implications. Like uh, if you have a learning disability, if you're dyslexic, then it might be a lifesaver for you. If you're English learner and your syntax is not quite there, it also might help you. But also, if you went to a terrible high school and never learned how to write, but you still have ideas, you still have creativity, that might be a lifesaver for you. But those kind of compensatory things don't happen on their own. They just don't. We know that. You have to actually provide resources and train everybody to use that. So, and I think in a society as large, it's kind of a reflection of what's happening in education as well, or vice versa. I don't know. So, in the one future, there will be AI very powerful, and that will destroy a lot of jobs. Some people even go to say most jobs. It's probably an exaggeration, but I I really don't like when people hide the facts that they will have impact on the labor market. It already does. And you can do two things. Like if you can either do more things with AI and bring more value to consumer or to your public that you serve, or you can just lay off people and let them, take care of themselves. Because the most important impact of AI technology is increasing productivity. So some people estimate that maybe additional 1.5% a year. If that happens, it would be huge. It's amazing. For example, it could, you can record every conversation that you have and then ask to create a model of yourself. I've been a dean for 7 years. I think people already know what I'm going to say. In best case scenarios, it'll make our lives richer, more free from mundane, boring tasks, and everybody will benefit from it. And the anti-utopian vision is that we quickly fire everyone. There will be social collapse because if you go into, 30-40% unemployment, that does such a shock to society that it's very hard to deal with, actually. So hopefully it doesn't happen. We're still in the hype kind of stage with AI, so we really don't have a realistic. We don't have a data yet to show how quickly the change is going to happen, and predictions vary greatly from people saying, "Oh yeah, a couple of years and no jobs," to people saying, nothing is going to change. So the answer is probably somewhere in between. And it's going to take at least 10 years until we actually see what the impact is on the labor market. So,
I think it's a good place to leave our conversation because time will tell. And for those of you listening who are interested in learning more about the National Institute on AI in Society and Dr. Sidorkin's work there, please check out the link in the show notes below. Dr. Sasha Sidorkin from Sacramento State University, thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
The Mastering the Next podcast is a part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Artis Cadieux, J.C. Bonilla, Mallory Wilsey, Brendan Henkel, Brian Gross, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.